Okay, Les, go for it. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. You hear me now?
Yes.
This is from Ernest Holmes's book, This Thing Called You. And just feel it and know it to be true. If you listen to peace, you will experience it. If you listen for truth, you will hear it. If you listen to power, you will receive it. If you listen to wholeness, you will discover it. The creative law which you use is like a mirror. The thought you hold before it is like an image. The mirror reflects the image you hold before it. Hold there, then, the image of faith and expectancy with enthusiastic conviction and undying trust. The only thing that can hinder you is yourself. The only thing that can help you is yourself, because it is you who reflects the image in the mirror. Jackson. It's Jackson's turn.
He waits for a minute.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love.
Wow, thank you, Jackson. And now, as we go on into the service and prepare to receive the wonderful inspirations that Reverend Angelica can give us, know that, because there's no better image to hold up in front of that mirror than love.
Were you going to do a treatment, Les?
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. It's your first time.
So there is one love, and there is one life, and we're all part of it. And as we go on into our day, and as we enjoy Angelica's talk and Edward's music, let us know with gratitude that power assists us in everything that we do because it is us. We are perfect manifestations of spirit and of everything we seek to accomplish. And so it is.
And so it is.
There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
Thank you, Jackson and Les. So today's message is Rocky Road, and I have a little question mark after that. And we might even say that we've been on a rocky road for quite a while. 18 months or something like that. And letting go of this idea of being on a rocky road is really important. And how do we deal with that? How do we deal with being on a rocky road? All I know is that in the science of mind, we have the tools to do it. So, when we push back on our comfort zones, we're often faced with challenges to our old ways of being. And life can feel really uncertain and our footing somewhat unstable. I know that even in the all these months of being sheltered in place, there's still things that go wrong, or what we're calling wrong. And so we want to really lean into our teaching so that we can live in a higher consciousness. So the central theme of our month is how to reach a higher level of consciousness, recognizing the spiritual power that we have and the evolutionary processes that we've gone through in order to transform ourselves into more conscious beings. As we get to this place where we can consciously use the creative power that Dr. Holmes talked about when he said, there is a power for good in the universe and you can use it. As we get more and more familiar with the conscious use of this power, we can navigate all sorts of challenges. And it's one of the finest arts that we can develop to reach a higher level of consciousness. So there's a lady named Mary O'Malley, and she had a quote, or she said, what if what is in the way is the way? So I looked at that this week and thought about different challenges that I've had in my life. And every single one that I can look back at with hindsight really taught me something. It brought me to a place, it brought me to where I am today. Every single one of them. Not one of them stopped me from this evolutionary process that I've been on. So I had a really interesting experience a couple days ago. I came home and it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I turned on my computer and I went to my Gmail, and all of a sudden hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of emails started popping up on my screen. And they were all about, thank you for signing up for this list. And it was different ones. I can't even imagine all the different things. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going on? And I'm trying to delete them. And it seemed like as soon as I could delete them, more would come in. And finally, I went to the Google help page and I found a thing that said that this was a new type of hacking where someone uses your credit card and then they use this bot to flood your email with all of these emails so that you might not see any notification that your bank or wherever would have sent you. So I'm thinking, what? And so I go back to my email, and I'm deleting all these emails, all these different groups that I apparently signed up on from this bot. And finally I found, and let me tell you, I'm not doing this calmly. I'm pissed. I mean, I am so irritated. I can't believe it. Because like I said, every time I would delete a whole page worth of emails that I didn't, sign up for, a whole new page would come in. And it was like, it was just this flood. And it just coming. And finally, way down at the bottom, I find a thing that says, thank you for your order. And it was from Wayfair. Now, I do have a Wayfair credit card, and I have bought a few things from Wayfair, but not in a while. And so I clicked that one open. I didn't want to click any of the others open because I didn't know what kind of virus they might have or something. But I clicked that one open, and somebody bought something I actually would like to have. And it was one of those faucets that has the... you pull the end of the faucet and you have the sprayer and, it's tall and looks pretty nice. But, so I'm looking, I go to that order on my account for Wayfair and they used my name, but it was an address in some other place. And they even changed my phone number. And then I get this text on my phone that says, you've stopped getting notifications from Wayfair. Well, that one came too late. But the whole idea that somebody would, I'll tell you, I do not understand this consciousness. Why do people do this? And I'm just going through all of that, and I'm going through the anger as I'm trying to get rid of all this. And finally, after hundreds of deletions, I think I've found... and when I found that Wayfair thing and I took care of that, I was able to cancel it before it got delivered. I finally got rid of all those emails to just having the ones that were actually mine. And I was so angry. My heart was pounding really fast. I felt like my blood pressure was up like crazy. And even finishing with it, getting everything cleared up did not make me feel any better. I just was so angry. And then all the rest of the afternoon, well, actually that took me till evening practically, the rest of the day I could not do anything or find anything to do that would give me any peace. And so I realized that road was really rocky. And this is not where I want to live. I do not want to live in anger. Could I get to that place of compassion for that person that was stealing? No. I could only think some choice swear words. So, our road, our path is not always smooth. And sometimes it becomes really windy. And maybe it's full of rocks that we trip over, etc. But what if what is in the way is the way? And I had to keep thinking about that. What did I learn out of that? Well, one, I learned that I don't want to live in that kind of consciousness, that anger consciousness. Nor do I want to live in the consciousness that attracts thieves. And the interesting thing was I finally managed to calm myself down. And then I get up the next morning and I open my email and there's a whole bunch more stuff, things that I didn't manage to get rid of, people that were thanking me for signing up for their email list. And even today there was some. So, I mean, it was hundreds. It was a flood. And I had to really look at this. And I thought, in my journal, I wrote down some questions for myself. And one of them was, what is my thought? What am I thinking when the road gets rocky? Well, I just told you what I was thinking, and it wasn't pleasant. And can I recognize that everything that's on this road is part of my spiritual path? Well, that took me a lot of work. And because I brought myself back to this place where I remembered that everything is God, and God is in everything, even in these rocks that I'm tripping over along my path. And so I'm not exactly sure what the blessing was in it still, except it gave me a story to tell in my talk. But I also know that my path is, I'm not going to live, as they say in the fairy tales, happily ever after. Part of the human experience is experiencing strangeness, is experiencing worry. And so every step, as we move up in consciousness, up the spiral that we talked about the last couple of weeks, as we move up in consciousness, hopefully we'll get to that place where we can look at these things and it'll just go, oh, a blip, instead of hours of agony and angst and anger, etc. So, there was my story. Now here is something from the science mind. The whole purpose of the science mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. The spiritual world is the cause of the material. We are spiritual beings governed by mental law. Wherever this consciousness lacks a true perspective, we're governed by mental law. Its outward expression will lack proper harmony. This is why we're taught to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. I love that phrase. The actual phrase from Scripture is, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. And that's what we're doing over and over and over again, renewing our minds. From CSL's Global Vision, we say, we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we're called to a higher state of consciousness and action. Individually and collectively, we're called to a higher state of consciousness and action. And you know what just came to me just now was that maybe that woman that used however she got my information, etc., maybe that was the first time she did it. And the fact that I caught it so quickly, the fact that I then reported it to Wayfair, etc., maybe that will make her change her mind about that kind of behavior. So I have 3 ideas, as usual. The first one is, I could have gone in 2 ways in that situation. I could have said something about how, all this pandemic, the politics, everything that's going on nowadays, it's just making people be angry, and it's making people be hateful, and it's making, people do things to other people that aren't polite or right, etc. But I don't want to live in that fear. Even with this pandemic, for instance, I read a lot about it because I'm curious. I read a lot about everything because I'm curious. And they're saying, no, there's a new variant out that's even worse than the Delta variant, blah, blah, blah. And I can see how easy it is for us as a collective to move into a place of fear. And in the textbook it says, we must not be afraid for the future. So my first idea is that the future is bright with promise. That's where we should be thinking, that everything is turning out much better than we could possibly ever imagine. Dr. Holmes writes, we must not be afraid for the future. I see the future is bright with promise. It beckons me forward into a more complete realization of my own worth and my rightful place in the universe. All my tomorrows will be happy and filled with harmonious occupations. I look to the future with great and pleasurable anticipation, knowing it will expand my opportunity for radiant self-expression. I love my past and my future, and understand that they are but continuations of the one unbroken chain of life. There is no future to be afraid of, and no past to bring discord into the present. I like that where he says, I look to the future with great and pleasurable anticipation, knowing it will expand my opportunity for radiant self-expression. What a great way to look at things. What a great place to be in consciousness. It's so much better than being afraid. Afraid for me, for instance, from that credit card thing, that now my information's out there and, other people are going to try to do the same thing. Or for us as a collective to think, oh no, this pandemic will never be over. We're going to be stuck in our houses forever. I mean, don't we tend to go to that place sometimes where it's something happens and then we think it's always going to be that way in the future? Yet that's not our truth. And we have the tools to move into this idea, the consciousness of the future is bright with promise. My second idea is a unity with the whole. And so, as we've been going along this month, we've discovered a unity with the whole on 3 sides of life, or from all 3 modes of expression. We're one with the body of the physical world, one with the creative law of the universe in the mental world, and one with the Spirit of God in the conscious world. So my feeling is that if we were to move from, if the most important thing for us was to be one with the Spirit of God in the conscious world, everything else would fall into place. Long time ago, Reverend Helen Street made this chart on the bulletin board, and some of you have heard this before, but she said, whatever you... Wait just a minute. Now I'm all confused. I'm going to have to let that one go for a minute because it flew away. So, could we ask or hope for more? Would it be possible for more to be given? We could not ask for more, and no greater freedom could be given. From now on, we shall expand, grow, and express only to the degree that we consciously cooperate with the whole. That too is from our textbook. Okay, so here's what she put on the board. Imagine this. Imagine I was writing on a board. The first thing I would write, the first line is God is, and then there would be a blank line. And then the next line is I am, and another blank line, and the next one is also I am, and there's a blank line. So her first example that I remember the most is God is love. This is all attached to this idea of being one with the Spirit of God in the conscious world, that's the most important. So if I choose to see God is love, then what happens on this chart is that I am loved. If God is love, I am loved. And the next layer is if I am loved, I am loving. So whatever I believe about God is what I am going to experience and what I'm going to give out to the world. So it's really important for us to pay attention to what we believe God is. I saw this thing on some, I don't remember what I was looking on, probably Facebook, where a more fundamental minister said that that the pandemic was God's punishment for the wickedness in the world that we're all expressing. And I thought, no, that's not true. But just think about that. I mean, you could put any word in that blank space for God is abundance, for instance. And if God is abundant, then I am abundant. And if I am abundant, then I'm probably giving, more giving. You could put, the God is, I am, and use any word, and that little formula will work. Because whatever we believe about God is what we're going to experience here. What was that idea? A unity with the whole, remembering that we're all one with the one. The third one is humanity, an expanding principle of conscious intelligence. Now, I have gender changed this one. There is more to us. This is also from the textbook, but I've changed it. There is more to us than we realize. Humanity is an eternal destiny, a forever expanding principle of conscious intelligence. The ocean in the drop of water, the sun in its rays. Humanity is birthless, deathless, changeless, and God as us, in us, is us. The highest God and the innermost God is one and the same God. So what tools do we use to adapt these three ideas into our life? We have spiritual mind treatment, we have meditation, we have affirmations, we have journaling, we have taking classes. There are so many things that our center shares and teaches with all of us to more fully come into this idea that even the rocky road is part of God. What if that way that we're experiencing, what if the road we're experiencing, rocky or pleasant, is the right road for us to be on in the moment? When you think back in your past, I bet you'll think back and go, wow, this happened that wasn't very nice in my life, but look, I learned this out of it. This happened, and oh, look, I learned this out of it. Everything that we experience takes us to a higher level of consciousness, if we'll allow it to, and if that's our intention. So I found this wonderful little meme, or yeah, I guess you'd call it a meme, but 10 things to remember. This will help us live in a more godlike way. It'll help us move into the consciousness that we want to, of knowing that this too is God. So, number 1, love is the answer, always. Absolutely. Maybe that little thought I had about that woman that used my credit card, that maybe that was the first time she had tried it or something. Maybe that was a way of taking myself out of the feelings I was having and moving into a more loving space. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, even the thief who steals believes at the moment that they're doing the right thing. Which is really hard for me to understand, but, I'd like to be at that consciousness where I could understand it more. But love is always the answer to anything. And maybe the thing is to love myself, even though I spent a day and a half in rage almost. The second idea is vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. You want to know more about this? Read any of Brene Brown's books. This is her claim to fame, actually, talking about vulnerability. And so many of us, I think, were raised with the idea that vulnerability is weakness. Perhaps when we did something when we were little and we cried and our parents said, "Don't cry," we might have taken on the idea that being vulnerable is weakness. But it's not. It's a strength. The third one is your body is sacred. Cherish it. One of our ministers on the East Coast, Dr. Terry Drew Karenin, he's experiencing a physical thing right now. He had heart surgery and then he had a stroke, and he sent out the most beautiful letter this morning. And in this letter, he explained what was happening to him, and he also advised all of us to cherish our bodies because they are sacred. And in fact, our bodies are the temple of the divine. If the life force within us is God, then this is a body temple. So cherish it as much as you can. And gratitude, number 4, gratitude shifts everything. Be thankful. That was one of the ways I got out of my hostile feelings that day, was being thankful that it wasn't any worse than it was. And I was able to catch it on time and all that. But learning to have an attitude of gratitude all the time makes life much more pleasant. So, for instance, right now I'm looking out towards my living room and there's a cat sitting on the cat tree admiring something outside very intently, and the sun is coming in, and it's one of the Bengals, so the sun is catching the gold tones in his fur, and I really appreciate color and light. I'm really grateful for the sun coming out this morning, just as grateful for the torrential rain last night. I woke up and it was so loud. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, that's really coming down. Number 5, forgiveness sets you free. It really does. Oh, they didn't spell really right. Forgiveness sets you free. Boy, it does, doesn't it? I mean, some of you might have been playing along with me this week on the themes, and one of last week's was about really forgiving. Letting go. We've been carrying so much stuff into our present moment that we don't need to carry. So forgiveness sets us free. Number 6, you cannot change others, only yourself. Now this one is kind of hard sometimes. I know there's a part of me that wants to change other people. There's a part of me that thinks that I know better for other people, and yet that's not true. The only thing that I can change is myself, and the only part of myself that I can change is my consciousness, just like you. And number 7, little acts of kindness are never little, ever. I remember one time talking to a younger minister, someone who had just come into the ministry, and I think I was on her ministerial panel. And she said, I met you years ago at a Sillamar, and I talked to you about being a minister, and you totally agreed that I could do it. And it just made me feel so good. I don't even remember that. Nor do I remember it as a little act of kindness. But little acts of kindness are never little, ever. They make a big deal. There's a story going around right now about a woman who had a really nice car, like a Mercedes or something like that, had pulled over. She was over on the side of the road because she had a flat tire. And she was older and not familiar with how to fix a flat tire. And this man drove up who had a rickety old car that made a lot of noise and he didn't look too good, and she's sitting in her car thinking, oh my God, I hope he's not going to hurt me or try to steal from me. And he says to her, I see that you have a flat tire. Do you need help? And so she, opened the trunk and everything so he could get the new tire, and he changed the tire, and she wanted to pay him for it at the end. And he said, no, no, just do this for me. Just give this same kindness to somebody else, the next person that needs it. And he drove away, and she drove away, and she comes to this little town, and she decides that she's hungry, and so she goes into the diner, and it's not a place she would normally be, and there is a young woman there who's really pregnant. And the young woman was so nice to her. I mean, they were about ready to close, but she made sure that the lady had some coffee, and she made sure that she got her some food, etc. And in the end, the lady, she brought her the bill and then went back behind the counter. And the lady paid her bill, left the money on the table with $100 tip. And the young woman, and then she left. And the young woman ran out in the parking lot trying to stop her because she had way overpaid, and she couldn't believe anybody would leave a $100 tip. And but the lady had already gotten in her car and left. She was driving down the road, and she goes back in, and as she picks up the plate, there's a four $100 bills under the plate. And there's a little note that says something about, somebody did an act of kindness for me today, and I want to share that. And he asked me to share it. And so she closes up the restaurant, and she goes home, and her husband's already in bed and asleep, and she gets into bed and she thinks to herself, or she says to him, she whispers in his ear, somebody did a kindness for us today. And she uses his name. I can't remember the man's name, but it happened to be, her husband happened to be the man that helped the woman fix the tire. And I thought, wow, kindness always returns to us. Not only are little acts of kindness never little, they always return to us in some way. In fact, I believe they return to us pressed down and running over. I love number 8. Fun is underrated. Enjoy yourself. I mean, I think sometimes we get so involved with things that we have to do, projects or paperwork or yard work or whatever it is, that we don't allow ourselves to have fun. And so allow yourself to have fun. Let the kid out every once in a while. Number 9 is age is just a number. It's never too late. I think that when I turned 73 on my birthday this past year, I was starting to think about all the things that I still wanted to do, all the places that I still want to visit in the world. I'd like to have another relationship. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that. And then I started thinking, yeah, but I'm 73 years old. Probably can't do that kind of stuff now. But so this one really touched me when I read it the other day, that age is just a number. It's never too late. And the last one is life is precious. Live it now. I think this is a message that we hear constantly, that life is precious. To really be in the present moment. To allow yourself to remember that who you are is spirit having a human experience. And to let yourself really enjoy this path. Even the bad moments. Let yourself move through them easily. And enjoy life. That's why we're here. To enjoy life and to remember who we are. So let's say this affirmation together. With complete faith, I surrender my life to Spirit. Whatever obstacles I perceive in my way, I step over them, Keeping my thoughts on God, my vision clears to see a clear path before me. And let's go into prayer. How grateful I am to remember that God is my life. I am living God's life. I am a unique, individualized expression of this one. And so I choose right now to let go of anything, any thoughts that make me feel smaller than that. And as I speak this word in the first person, I speak it for all of us. And I declare that in every area of my life, I am ready and willing to live it to the fullest, to laugh more, to have fun, to realize that even the parts of my path that are rocky, I can say like Emma Curtis Hopkins says, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me. And the message will be clear. The strength, whatever it is that I need to move along my path, will be right with me. So I celebrate life and everything about it. I celebrate my past, knowing that because of my past, I am who I am today. I celebrate my future, knowing, declaring that it's going to be exciting and fun and full of all the things that I desire. And I celebrate this present moment. In this moment, I remember who I am. God in form. And I allow this to bring me a glorious feeling of being alive. And I remember that this energy, this divine energy, is the energy of unconditional love. So I remember, God is love. I am the beloved. And I go forth into my life, loving everywhere and everyone I can. So I release these words with a grateful heart, knowing that they are already so. And I know for each one of us that we've gotten something that will help us along our personal path. And that together we are up-leveling the collective path. And this is a good thing. It's a God thing. And so it is.